Hello Fiends and Collectors, this is me, Daniel East 1000, back again with another Star Wars The Black Series figure review. Yes indeed, it has been a hot minute since I've sat down to talk figures with you. It is the season, unfortunately, where everything kind of unwinds down, getting into the festive mood. But there has been one set that I've been meaning to pick up, and indeed review for you guys to share my thoughts on it. It is none other than the Mace Windu and Darth Sidious 2-pack. This was a New York Comic Con exclusive. There's certainly a rant to be had with this one, so if you will just indulge me before we take a look at the packaging and indeed the figures themselves. This was made available at New York Comic Con. Hasbro themselves even said it would be available on Hasbro Pulse. Fantastic. I love it when that happens. I'm glad that it's made available to a wider audience, giving people a bit of a chance to get a hold of it, even if in some cases in the past it has been to varying quantities. With that being said though, after all the reveals that were made at New York Comic Con, I was hyped. I had my card ready. I want to get myself this set. So the release date was made. I and many others flocked to the Hasbro Pulse website, ready to make our purchase, but we were greeted with a message on the page for this listing. Essentially, it's a big middle finger to those of us who were not pre-subscribed to Hasbro Pulse. I personally don't understand why you would even bother with the Hasbro Pulse membership. Free shipping doesn't appeal to me because at the end of the day it's available anyway if you spend over a certain amount on the site. Access to pre-orders or early pre-order stuff, it's just a real nothing burger of a service. I don't fully understand what you're actually paying for in terms of this. But regardless, there was a message on there saying no, regular peasant folk can't order this yet. You have to wait a whole month to be able to get your hands on this. And it's not because it's a pre-order. No, they actually had stock ready and available to send out. It makes no sense. I don't understand the financial decision, the business decision behind paywalling this particular set, forcing people to buy a Hasbro Pulse subscription to even order the damn thing. If anything, it's going to really push people away from even bothering, and it certainly did for me for a long time. That's why it's taken me until recently to pick this set up, because, well, I ended up buying a other item from the Black Friday sale. I saw that I still needed this, and I thought, you know what, I'll whap that in the basket, because I've got a pretty good deal on that Black Friday item. Kind of counterbalanced and also incentivized the free shipping as well. Ultimately, I know for a fact, as this hasn't sold out yet, this will go to clearance, either on Hasbro Pulse or at the other smaller retails. And again, that's one of the big reasons why I don't use Hasbro Pulse, because it completely undercuts the retailers that have supported lines like the Black Series and Star Wars The Vintage Collection and many other Hasbro products. I mean, I feel like I'm going to go full rant here about Hasbro Pulse, but even ordering this damn thing was a pain in the arse. This has happened to me twice now, but every time I go through payment, an hour or so, I then receive an email saying payment's been rejected. I'm very particular about inputting my details, but it's happened twice, and I'm sure I've seen other people have the same issue where they then have to go into the website and input the details again to get stuff ordered. Let me know if you guys at home have had a similar issue with that. I really try and avoid using it, but alas, I got my figure set. I know that I've maybe paid over the odds for this, particularly when it does go to clearance. Sue me for telling my viewership to wait until clearance when I've bought it at full price. But be a clearance vulture. Pay what you think something is worth. And well, hopefully this review that I'm putting together for you as I'm filming this allows you to make that decision if you want to pick this one up or hold off on it. I kind of had a feeling as to what I was getting in with this one. There's a bit of good, there's a bit of bad, and there's a bit of downright ugly. So with that being said, let's get into the review. First and foremost, at the packaging, you've got this lovely presentation box. It's not quite as nice as the Celebration Europe Ronin set, of which I have reviewed. Link will be up there if you want to check that out. But it's still a pretty nice homage to the old Black Series packaging that we all know and love. You've got some really nice, I presume, Gregory Titus artwork, or at least it's very heavily influenced, where you've got the scene that it's depicting both these figures or characters from, with Mace duking it out against the Emperor, or Lord Sidious.
Not the time, helicopter!
Anyway, yeah, it's depicting that iconic scene. Star Wars The Black Series at the top there. I love the sheen on that artwork. Name of the media, bit of legalese at the bottom there, the character names. On the side, the lightning effect kind of running off. Star Wars The Black Series. Then on the other side, you've got just the name of the characters there. Nothing much to really ring home about. On the back, Star Wars The Black Series. Bit of a bio on the characters. Star Wars Revenge of the Sith just there as well. A ton of legalese at the bottom and at the bottom there as well. Just got Star Wars The Black Series at the top. And then finally, the cool thing about this packaging is it has a slip cover, which you can pull down here. And once you've untaped the tabs, it can unfold to this really cool diorama, of which I have removed the figures out of the packaging so you can see the backdrop of that. Well, the figures would be just sat in there, and that's a really, really cool display. I kind of don't want to get rid of this packaging, or at the very least remove this part of it off, so I have a nice backdrop that really does set the scene that these characters are depicted from. You've of course got Palpatine's office and the Coruscant backdrop just there as well. Really, really beautiful. There's also a slip out piece on the back there, which just has the Coruscant backdrop, and it still has the full image as well. Just absolutely awesome. I love how that unfolds. You can really unpack this and have an experience taking a look at the figures in the box as well. It's beautiful, in and out of packaging, let's just say that. So with that being said, with the packaging out of the way and done with, let's take a look at the figures themselves.
You are under arrest, my lord.
Anakin, I told you it would come to this. I was right. The Jedi are taking over.
The oppression of the Sith will never return. You have lost.
No. 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 You will die!
So here we have the figures in hand. I've got some very mixed feelings about this set. There's a lot in here that I should really, really like, but then there's other bits that could have certainly been better. I'd be really curious to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. So without further ado, let's start off with the repack or repaint of the set, Mace Windu. Right off the bat, there's really not much to ring home about this particular figgy. Mace Windu is a character that we've had quite a few times in the Black Series. It certainly makes sense to be packed in a set like this because it's been a while since we've got this particular version of Mace Windu. But Hasbro have found it upon themselves to include some nice little tweaks and additions that mix the variations up for those of you who are eagle-eyed viewers. First and foremost, if we just take a look at the head sculpt of which this figure is packed in with, he has this very gritted teeth look of which I really, really like. It's such a cool inclusion that Hasbro included that. So nice attention to detail from the scene particularly. But not only that, if we just take a look at the Jedi robes, there's a bit of an purple hue to the colour scheme of them, which is different from the original release, that I really do like. I don't know if that's because of the lighting in this particular scene, because it's quite dark, and obviously the reflection of the lightsaber blade that he's got, or if it was actually a colour variation seen on the costume itself. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's just a nice little touch that they've added. Again, this is essentially a repack and repaint of the previous Mace Windu, just with the addition of a new head. I really like the robes, although I do believe that Hasbro have certainly come leaps and bounds in terms of their robe game. This still utilises the older one, if I'm not mistaken, and the actual hood itself is pinned back, which is a bit of a shame, but to be fair, for the purpose of the scene that this is represented from, he doesn't have the hood up, so I'm completely cool with this. I know other people's mileage may vary on that, but yeah, overall it's just a nice looking figure. Certainly a little bit outdated in some areas, particularly with its articulation, but it's not too bad. Certainly would have been nice to have seen Hasbro go back to the drawing board with some parts of it, just to retool and bring it up to a bit more of a modern standard, but I'm not going to dog on it too much because it's still relatively good. Now, in terms of his accessories, as I did show, he comes with the lightsaber hilt and the purple blade that can be removed. Unfortunately, there's nowhere to store the hilt onto the belt of the figure. Likewise, you could consider the robes a accessory because you can remove them if you did so wish. Not only that, but he does have an interchangeable head, so you can switch out this one for the neutral one that was included before. So it's a pretty good likeness to Samuel L. Jackson on both fronts. In terms of Mace Windu's articulation, he has a ball joint in the head, a ball joint just at the lower part of the neck, butterfly joints in the shoulders, although I do feel like they are a little bit limited because the plastic here on the tunic isn't as soft as we've seen in more recent years. But you can still kind of get them to move in. You've got ball jointed elbows, ball jointed wrists, ball jointed torso, ball jointed hips, swivels at the tops of the thighs, double hinged knees, and ball jointed ankles with the rocker joints. So you can get this figure in some relatively good poses. I think it certainly would have been better if they'd maybe remoulded the sleeves of the Jedi robes. Certainly would have liked to have seen them used what they've done with the more recent Anakin and Obi-Wan by having the ball joint in the top of the sleeve on the wrist that then connects to another ball joint in the hand. Again, cost cutting wise, not a bad figure by any stretch. So with Mace Windu out the way and done with, now let's take a look at Darth Sidious, of which I may be controversial like this. There's certainly some missteps here, don't get me wrong, before you start hammering at the comments. But I think there's been some really cool choices on Hasbro's part. First and foremost, let's just get a close in on that head sculpt, of which is a phenomenal likeness to Ian McDiarmid. A really, really good job there on Hasbro's part. I love this head sculpt, it looks great. Not only that, but I do quite like the robes, and I know a lot of people have complained about the robes themselves because they've gone for a material. If you actually look at the costume of Darth Sidious from this scene, there's some really nice textures on the outer part of his robes, and I can completely get that, at least from an aesthetic standpoint. For me, as someone who likes to play with the figures and pose them around, I love the fact that they've used some soft goods on this guy, because it really does allow for a greater range of posing, particularly in the aerobatics that we see in that fight scene from Revenge of the Sith between Palpatine and Mace Windu. For those who like to pose the figures, I think they're going to have a great time with this one. Hopefully down the line Hasbro might make a plastic overlay to go on this, because again, that would look great on the figure as well. But for me and my mileage, I actually rather do quite like this. The only thing that I really don't like about this figure that really catches my eye is the fact that the hands are cast in a rather white plastic. Now that makes sense in terms of the other accessory that you get in this set, but paired with the Ian McDiarmid unscarred face sculpt that we've got here, it just kind of throws things a little bit off. It's not too much, but I really do think it's a slight detriment. They should have included some interchangeable hands that were in more of a skin-toned colour scheme as this to pair with it. It's a little bit of a shame that. Speaking of which, in terms of the body, there is some reuse going on here, and again, that's perfectly fine in my book if it gets the character out. I have no qualms about that, and particularly with all these soft goods overlaid, I think it looks pretty decent. But again, some people might disagree with me on that point, and that's completely fair. Moving in to the accessories, he does come with, as I've got him displayed here, the lightsaber. I love the hilt that they've included with him. You've also got the blade, of which can be removed, like so. There's nowhere to restore the lightsaber hilt onto the figure itself, which is a bit of a shame. Now, not only that, something that I really do appreciate Hasbro including within this set that kind of completes the hands, as I did kind of stipulate, is the alternative head, of which is actually on a neck post, kind of similar to the Stranger, and that just pairs really, really nicely. You've got this really grotesque, disfigured look of Darth Sidious. I love that. And what actually seals the deal even more with this is you can actually remove the hands, and it comes with the hands with the Force Lightning effect attached. And what's cool about the Force Lightning effect here, if I can get them in, is the fact that it's being repelled back into his face. There's actually a point where it curves round that you can slot into Mace Windu's lightsaber to make it look as if it's been deflected. That's such an awesome, awesome piece of detail that Hasbro's included with this, and gets some major props from me. At least in terms of both of these figures, because there's been some real attention to detail in the scene itself, but at the same time there's been some really subtle little missed details, like with the missed regular coloured hands, that would have really elevated this set even more. But that's all the accessories that Darth Sidious comes with. But with regards to his articulation, he has a ball joint in the head, ball joint in the neck, butterfly joints in the shoulders, ball jointed shoulders as well, ball jointed elbows, ball jointed wrist, ball jointed torso, ball jointed hips, swivels at the tops of the thighs, ball jointed knees, and ball jointed ankles with the rocker joints. So you can get this guy in some really, really good poses. Overall, I'm still really conflicted with this set. I really, really want to like it. And there's certainly elements that I do like, but at the same time, you really have to consider the cost of this set. I picked this up for 60 quid, which makes each figure individually about £30, give or take. And that typically would put these figures into the deluxe category. Now, Mace Windu certainly isn't a deluxe figure. Including one head doesn't quantify it being a deluxe figure. Maybe if they actually include some additional articulation with him and some retweaks, I'd be a bit more forgiving. Likewise with Sidious, while there's certainly more accessories packed in with this guy, because you've got the force lightning effects, the interchangeable heads, it's getting closer to being a deluxe. But again, the fact that Hasbro didn't include the regular coloured hands is a slight misstep, particularly for an exclusive set. And I know the argument can be made that the price point is set because it's an exclusive, but obviously this is going to come down to you and your mileage and how you feel about this. And I can see both sides of the argument for it. Weirdly enough, there's part of me that just can't hate it. I've had so much fun posing these figures up, getting them displayed, and the little details that Hasbro have put in shows real care and attention to detail from the film itself. As far as the celebration goes for Star Wars Revenge of the Sith's 20th anniversary, it ain't that bad. There's certainly been some missteps this year as far as the celebration goes, but this is a nice one to accompany what we've already received. But let me know what you guys think. Am I on the mark? Am I off it? Sound off. And well, just while I've got you, drop us a like, a subscribe. There's some videos down here for you to check out if you do so wish. And well, this is me, Daniel East 1000, signing out. Thank you very much for watching.